The $140 to $150 price tier of cases presents some interesting and compelling options for potential PC builders. The Fractal Define R6 is by now a mainstay and offers generous interior proportions and excellent sound isolation. The Coolermaster H500P mesh is king of airflow. The NZXT H700 is stylish and colorful, and the Lian PC011 has come to define this segment in popularity. So new entries into this segment need to do quite a lot to shoehorn their way into the public's view. Does Corsair's new iQ465X meet that standard?
Brian, it's your turn to take the dog
What?
out. Brian.
No, I can't.
Brian.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. It's super loud over here.
Here, try this. Brian, can you hear me this time?
Yeah, I can hear you. This is great.
Much better. Can you go wash my car?
Oh. Alright. With full modularity, 80 plus platinum efficiency, and whisper silent operation thanks to a semi-passive 0 RPM fan mode, the new Fractal Design Ion Plus is the ideal power supply to make sure you don't miss what's going on in the world around you. Check out the link below to learn more. At first glance, you'd be forgiven for confusing the 465X with several other Corsair enclosures of years past. It has the front tempered glass and exposed fan design of the 570X, the same general size and layout of last year's 460X, and the light loop fans like you'll find in the 680X. But in reality is a hybrid of all these designs, borrowing the best from each to come up with what ends up being a fairly compelling mid-tower design. First, let's start with the exterior. While in the past Corsair has been guilty of slapping tempered glass on every surface possible without consideration for airflow or ease of installation, this time the approach is much more restrained. You get it here only on two sides of the case, with the top being simple perforated steel with magnetic dust filter, and the right side your traditional thumb-screwed steel panel. The left side is a no-frills, full-height pane of tempered glass attached with thumb screws and rubber offsets. The glass has a black rim to help hide your grubby fingerprints, as well as the border of the chassis. But otherwise, it's pretty standard stuff here. The front tempered glass panel does provide some innovation, however, as it's offset from the chassis by about 2 centimeters. It uses the same long thumb screw system that we first saw on the 570X to keep it attached, and thick plastic standoffs to help keep it evenly spaced top to bottom. This is a proper solution to the issue of glass versus airflow at the front of a case, as the gap is honestly enormous and completely unrestricted compared to what we see a lot of the time. Behind that glass, we find one of the major selling points of the 465X, the inclusion of 3 Corsair light loop fans. A 3-pack of these fans will run you somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 all by themselves. So already the value proposition here seems promising. The LL120 fans set up as intake are the only ones that you get with the 465X, so hopefully they're moving enough air to compensate for a lack of any exhaust. As always, they look great and they're configurable through Corsair's iQ software, hence the name of the case. The IO is positioned at the leading edge of the top panel, and to be honest, I wish there was a little more to it than this. At $149 MSRP, I think I require USB-C in late 2019, or at very least some kind of expanded connectivity option. As is, this looks a little sparse. Before we look at the main chamber, let's talk about cable management. It's merely okay. While this much depth in some cases might be fine, with the 465X, Corsair has built in a lighting node core that connects the RGB functionality of your fans and any other Corsair peripherals that you may install. But this means that before you install your system, there's already wiring running basically in every direction that you will have to corral and manage. Add in a fairly simple build like I use for my test configuration and things start to look like this. Not terrible, but definitely not what I'd call clean. Not to mention that when you look down below into the PSU chamber under the shroud, the length afforded for cable storage is less than most cases. In fact, it was hard to fit my ATX power supply in here with any room to spare without taking out the hard drive cage. I was able to fit everything ultimately, but not without a little bit of a struggle, and like I said, my test system is dead simple, with no stated devices or additional fans. Imagine what this might look like if you added on a rear fan for some exhaust along with maybe 2 at the top and 1 or 2 2.5-inch SSDs. The main chamber is reminiscent of the 460X. There are 2 2.5-inch mounting points on the right side of the motherboard tray for additional storage, and appropriate cutouts and grommets both next to the motherboard and on top of the shroud. I do like the positioning of this cutout as it allows for easy routing of the PCIe cables for your graphics card. The front portion of the shroud also has a cutout meant to allow you to install up to a 360mm radiator up front if you choose. Just be aware though that if you want to go down this route, you'll have to ditch the hard drive cage down below, as it will otherwise interfere. The rear wall does have space for mounting an additional 120mm fan for exhaust if you were to purchase one, and also a 2-slot vertical mount for a graphics card that should probably go unpopulated unless you're water cooling, as it's pressed right up against the glass and won't allow for really any air circulation. At the top, you do have room for additional fans. However, just be aware that there is some concern about conflict with tall VRM heatsinks or memory modules. This is overall a fairly short case without a specific water cooling focus, so loading it up with radiators and reservoirs might not be the best idea. I performed my standard case thermals and acoustics testing on the 465X using my Ryzen 1700X/RTX 2060 testing system. This includes a Cooler Master tower cooler and all of the case fans in their default positions. Idle temps for both the CPU and the GPU were very good and among the lowest that I've recorded. CPU load temps after a half hour of IDA64 stress topped the charts at only 55 degrees. This is better than the PureBase 500, which is a similar sized case. GPU load temps were okay, but less impressive as it gets beaten out here by the NZXT 510 Elite and the Inwin 905. For my noise test, I run both the CPU and GPU stress tests simultaneously for a half hour and record on my sound meter from about a foot away. Although not the best in my testing group, the 465X still does a good job here and isn't out of line for a case with a completely open front and very little noise dampening. Overall, the Corsair iQ465X is a solid entry into the mid-tower market. However, its value hinges almost entirely on your desire to use Corsair's light loop fans in your build. If you were going to use them anyway or find their look and performance appealing, this is almost like getting a tempered glass case with lighting controller and a premium design for about 50 bucks. That's a steal. But if you just look at the overall value proposition of a small-ish mid-tower case with 3 fans and no exhaust for $150, that might be a hard sell. The case is a good thermal performer and looks great overall, so I'm sure it will have its fans out there. Are you one of them? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, don't forget to get subscribed to the channel if you're not already. Hit that like button if this video did anything for you. Thanks for watching, guys, as always, and I will see you next time.